What's the wildest thing a divorce judge has ever said that changed the entire case in seconds? Story 1. During my cousin's divorce hearing, things were getting heated. His ex was demanding full custody of their daughter and trying to paint him as an unfit father because he worked long hours as a firefighter. She was calm, poised, and made a solid case, until the judge asked her one question. Ma'am, if you're so concerned about your daughter's safety, why did you leave her alone for 3 days last month while you went on a cruise with your boyfriend? Silence. Her face went pale. My cousin's lawyer didn't even know about it. The judge had done a little digging on his own. Apparently, someone had anonymously tipped off child services, and it was noted in a report that was quietly added to the file just the day before. The mood in the courtroom shifted instantly. Her lawyer looked like he wanted to crawl under the table. The judge ended up granting my cousin primary custody and limited her to supervised visits. Just like that, everything flipped in seconds. Story 2. I sat in on a divorce case when I was clerking, and it was mostly standard, until the wife presented a binder labeled Exhibit HELL. This thing was thick. Inside were printouts of over 300 pages of texts, emails, receipts, and even GPS logs showing the husband's infidelity. He looked smug the entire time, even joked to his lawyer that no one reads all that crap. The judge paused, opened the binder, flipped through a few pages, then slowly leaned forward and said, Mr. Davis, I just want to confirm, you're denying all these accusations under oath? He nodded confidently. The judge slammed the binder shut and said, then you won't mind if I submit this to the district attorney for perjury review. Silence. His lawyer turned white. 5 minutes later, they called for a recess. By the time they came back, the husband agreed to every single one of her demands, including full alimony and custody. Story 3. I was the court reporter for a messy divorce trial where both sides were accusing each other of hiding assets. The husband owned a string of small businesses, and the wife was convinced he had offshore accounts. He denied everything, swearing he barely had enough to pay rent. After hours of back and forth and document reviews, the judge asked, Mr. Feldman, how do you pay for your Porsche? The guy blinked like he forgot where he was. What Porsche? Judge replied, the one registered to your name, photographed outside your girlfriend's apartment last Tuesday. Boom. No one had mentioned a girlfriend. The wife had hired a PI who gave the judge the info but didn't tell her side's lawyer. The guy stammered. His lawyer whispered something frantically. The judge just stared until he said, I lease it under the business. Ah, so you do have income the court hasn't seen? The judge said. Case turned instantly. Wife got the house, more support, and the Porsche, seized as an asset. Story 4. My friend was in a custody battle with her narcissist ex who kept using their son as leverage. He'd act like a saint in court but constantly manipulated their child behind the scenes. At one point, he presented screenshots that made it look like she was mentally unstable. Late-night texts, spiraling messages, even threats. The judge looked at the screenshots, then turned to my friend and asked, do you use an iPhone or Android? She answered, iPhone. Then the judge said, that's what I thought. These screenshots are from an Android. He faked them. Gasps. Her ex tried to backpedal, saying he must have received forwarded messages. The judge wasn't buying. They called in a tech specialist who verified the metadata was altered. That moment completely destroyed his credibility. Not only did she get full custody, but he lost visitation rights for 6 months, all because he didn't realize message bubbles on iPhones are blue. Story 5. I'll never forget this one. The husband was asking for spousal support because he claimed his wife was abusive and forced him to give up his career. He cried on the stand, talked about depression, and even brought a fake therapist letter. Then the judge asked, Mr. Lane, why did you write your abuse journal using your wife's old work laptop? He answered proudly, because it had Word installed. The judge nodded. So you're aware that it also auto-syncs to her company's cloud storage? Dead silent. Apparently, everything he typed, all his fabricated stories, notes to himself on how to appear more emotional in court, even reminders like, don't forget to tear up during child question, were uploaded and reviewed by his wife's legal team. The judge dismissed his spousal support request immediately and reprimanded him for bad faith. It was over right then and there. Story 6. During a divorce case in Texas, the wife accused her husband of being a controlling manipulator. He denied everything and claimed she was just too sensitive. The court had seen this kind of dynamic before, but what changed everything was one moment during cross-examination. The wife's lawyer asked the husband, is it true you installed a GPS tracker in her car without her knowing? He scoffed and said, of course not. The lawyer held up a small device in an evidence bag and said, then how do you explain this being removed from her rear bumper by a mechanic 2 weeks ago? The guy visibly panicked. I put that there for her safety. Then the judge leaned in and asked, did you inform her you were tracking her for safety? No, but that's illegal surveillance. Right then and there, the judge called for a recess, and by the end of the day, the husband's request for joint custody was revoked. She got full custody, and he got hit with a restraining order, all over a little device he thought no one would ever find. Story 7. One of the most satisfying moments I've witnessed in court was when a woman came in acting like a damsel in distress. She was seeking alimony and claiming she couldn't work because her ex destroyed her emotionally and financially. She said he drained her savings and left her in debt. But her ex had been quietly collecting receipts. Literally, when it was his turn to speak, he calmly submitted a folder of credit card statements. It showed she had been spending thousands monthly on luxury spas, designer bags, and first-class travel after the alleged financial devastation. But what sealed the deal? A selfie she posted on Instagram, captioned, "Treating myself with his money. He owes me this." The judge looked at the printed screenshot for a long second, then said, "Well, Ms. Porter, thank you for presenting Exhibit A against your own claim." Her lawyer looked like he aged 10 years on the spot. Alimony request denied. She stormed out before the hearing even ended. Story 8. This was a military divorce, always intense because of pensions and benefits. The wife had cheated while her husband was deployed and had even moved the other guy into their house. She denied it all, saying he was just a friend. Then the judge asked, "Who pays your utility bill?" She answered, "I do." The judge replied, "That's interesting because this man, the friend, has been paying your gas and electric for over 6 months. His name is on the account." Her face froze. No one had expected that. Turns out the husband's lawyer subpoenaed the utility company, and those records told a different story. The judge gave the husband everything he asked: the house, the car, and full custody of their son. She didn't even get visitation for the first year. Wild how one utility bill blew up her entire case. Story 9. My cousin went through a nasty divorce that lasted over a year. His ex-wife kept delaying proceedings, filing motions to reschedule, and even lied about being hospitalized at one point. She wanted to drag it out so she could keep living in their house without paying a dime. When they finally got to court, she smugly told the judge she had no place to go and needed more time in the home. The judge asked, "Do you currently reside at the property in question?" She said yes. Then he asked, "And who is the man listed as a co-resident on your current lease agreement submitted to the DMV?" Her face twisted in confusion. Apparently, she had updated her license address weeks ago to an apartment she shared with her new boyfriend and used it to register her car. DMV flagged the address update and the husband's lawyer pulled it as evidence. The judge laughed, literally laughed, and said, "I believe you just evicted yourself." She was ordered to vacate the house in 72 hours and pay back 6 months of rent equivalent to her ex. The look on her face? Priceless. Story 10. This one blew my mind. The wife was accusing her husband of physical abuse, financial abuse, emotional manipulation, everything. She had statements from friends, dramatic photos, and even what she claimed was a medical report. The courtroom was silent as she told her story in tears. But then the judge asked her one question. "Can you tell me the name of the hospital where you were treated on April 4th? She confidently answered. The judge nodded, then said, "That's interesting. We contacted that hospital. They confirmed no patient by your name was seen that day." Boom. Then came the second blow. Her own sister came forward, unannounced, and handed the judge an envelope. Inside were screenshots of texts where the woman admitted to making up the abuse because "it's the only way I'll win custody." The judge was furious. She lost custody immediately. The case was referred to CPS and law enforcement for investigation into perjury and fraud. The husband, who had sat silently the whole time, just exhaled. You could tell he'd been holding that breath for a year. Story 11. There was this divorce hearing where the husband insisted he was broke. No assets, no savings, just a humble man trying to survive. His wife was asking for a modest settlement. Nothing crazy, just her share after 12 years of marriage. The judge asked him flat out, "Sir, do you own any cryptocurrency?" He laughed and said, "No, Your Honor. That stuff's a scam." Without missing a beat, the wife's attorney pulled out a printed screenshot. His public crypto wallet balance showing over $400,000 in Bitcoin. The husband turned bright red and stammered, "I forgot about that." The judge leaned forward and said, "Forgot about nearly $500,000? Must be nice." He ruled immediately to freeze the assets and initiate a forensic audit. The wife ended up with 50%, and the judge ordered an additional fine for attempting to hide funds. Forgetfulness doesn't fly when blockchain receipts are public. Story 12. My dad's a retired divorce attorney, and there's one case he still talks about. A woman came in claiming her husband was abusive, manipulative, and unfaithful. She brought printed emails and photos of him with another, supposedly his mistress. The husband didn't even try to deny it. He just asked to speak. He reached into a folder and calmly pulled out plane tickets, time-stamped receipts, and work logs proving he was in another state the entire week the photos were supposedly taken. Then he said, "Your Honor, I'd like to submit Exhibit A. The man in those photos is my brother, not me." The court gasped. The resemblance was uncanny. Same build, similar haircut. But when you looked closely, there were differences. Turns out, the wife had been sleeping with his brother and tried to frame it like he was the cheater. The judge was furious. She lost her entire claim, and the husband was granted everything he asked, including the house and full custody. Oh, and his brother? No longer in the picture. Story 13. This case was like something out of a soap opera. The wife was claiming the husband was mentally unfit, citing bizarre behaviors like talking to himself, erratic sleep, and hoarding. She wanted full custody, the house, and total financial control. The husband, clearly nervous, didn't have a strong rebuttal until the judge, casually flipping through the file, asked, "Mr. Hall, can you explain why your wife had you involuntarily committed 3 months ago, yet was posting vacation photos from Cancun that same week?" Everyone turned to the wife. She tried to cover, saying she needed self-care after such a traumatic event. But it was too late. The judge wasn't just suspicious, he was livid. It came out that she had manipulated a psychiatrist into having him temporarily committed to build a stronger custody case, and then left the country with her boyfriend while her husband sat in a mental health facility, confused and alone. The judge reversed the custody arrangement immediately and referred the case for criminal investigation. She walked in thinking she had the upper hand, walked out with nothing but legal bills and shame. Story 14. This story still makes me laugh. The husband was an older guy, maybe mid-60s, divorcing his third wife. She was claiming he had promised to buy her a house, fund her lifestyle forever, etc. She kept repeating, "He told me I'd be taken care of for life." After about 30 minutes of this, the judge looked at her and asked, "Ma'am, were you aware this is his third divorce?" She said yes. "And that the first 2 wives made the same claim and received nothing?" She blinked. The judge held up a file with transcripts from those cases. Same speech, same promises, same story. Then he looked at the husband and said, "Mr. Redman, do you always say this line to women?" The guy shrugged and smirked. "Guess I'm a romantic." Everyone laughed, even the court reporter. But the judge wasn't fooled. He ruled that there was no legal basis for her claim and told her, if verbal promises were enforceable in court, Hallmark would be in trouble. She didn't get the house. She didn't get the lifestyle. All she got was a harsh lesson in a courtroom full of side eyes. Story 15. This one was explosive. Literally. The wife accused her husband of being reckless and dangerous. She told the court he once started a fire in their backyard, trying to build a DIY smoker, and nearly burned the whole house down. He denied it, said she was exaggerating and that he was just grilling. The judge didn't say anything, just stared at the husband. Then he pulled up a USB, inserted it, and played a video. It was a home security cam video. The footage showed the husband in the backyard pouring lighter fluid into a makeshift smoker made of a metal trash can. It ignited like a bomb. The man dove out of the way, his shirt on fire. But the best part? After rolling on the ground, he stood up, turned to the camera, and said, "Babe, if this works, we're never buying a smoker again." Dead silence in court, then laughter. The judge didn't even raise his voice. Just said, "I think that's enough. Custody will remain with the mother." And that was it. A DIY disaster sealed the deal. Story 16. In a high-profile divorce, the wife was asking for alimony, child support, and ownership of the family home. Her argument? That she'd given up her career to support her husband's business and raise their kids. It was compelling. Until the judge asked a single question. "Can you explain why your tax returns for the past 3 years show $160,000 in annual income from consulting?" She tried to spin it, saying it was part-time work she did between raising the kids, but the judge wasn't buying it. Turns out, she'd been running her own side business, fully operational and profitable, while still using the stay-at-home spouse narrative in court. Even worse, she'd hired one of her clients as a nanny, just so she could write off personal trips as business expenses. The judge tossed out her alimony request and adjusted child support based on both incomes. Her little side hustle ended up costing her big. Story 17. This one got spicy. The husband accused his wife of cheating, emotional abuse, and financial manipulation. He came in loud, angry, and looked ready to explode. She sat there calmly, sipping water, like she was watching a Netflix drama. When it was her turn, she said very little, just handed the judge a sealed envelope. The judge opened it, flipped through a few pages, and raised his eyebrows. "Mr. Kelly," the judge said, "you're accusing your wife of stealing money from your shared account. Is that correct?" "Yes, absolutely," he shouted. "She took everything." "Well," the judge replied, "according to your bank statements, you transferred over $60,000 to an OnlyFans creator named Lacey Ray Spicy over a 6-month period." The entire courtroom froze. His lawyer put a hand over his mouth. The wife didn't even smirk. She just sat back, arms crossed. That moment completely changed the case. She walked out with the house in sole custody, and he walked out with public humiliation and a very expensive subscription history. Story 18. A woman was trying to divorce her husband of 15 years and take full custody of their 2 daughters. She claimed he was unstable, paranoid, and obsessed with conspiracy theories. He didn't deny it. In fact, he leaned into it. In his opening statement, he said, "Your Honor, I believe the government is using 5G towers to read my thoughts. My wife is part of it." Dead silence. The judge blinked and said, "Sir, are you suggesting your wife is involved in a federal surveillance conspiracy?" He nodded with conviction. That should have been enough. But the kicker? He brought in a massive poster board showing a map of the towers in their area and linked them to grocery receipts she kept in a drawer. It was so wild the judge didn't even get angry. He just said, "I believe the court has all the information it needs." Custody went to the mother. Supervised visitation only. The guy walked out still muttering about the truth coming out. Legendary. Story 19. A couple was in court fighting over a dog. No kids, no property battle, just one golden retriever named Max. The wife claimed Max had always been her emotional support animal. The husband said he took care of the dog every day and that Max was more attached to him. It was going nowhere until the judge, with a half smile, said, "Bring in the dog." They literally brought Max into the court. The bailiff opened the door, and Max bolted straight for the husband, tail wagging like crazy. He ignored the wife completely and tried to jump into the guy's lap. The judge chuckled and said, "Well, that settles it." Max went home with the husband. The wife tried to protest, but the judge simply said, "Sometimes the dog decides." Still the most wholesome mic drop I've seen in family court. Story 20. This one was dark but ended with a twist no one expected. The wife accused her husband of neglect and emotional abuse, said he was distant, cold, and emotionally unavailable for most of their 10-year marriage. He didn't say much in response, just sat there with this quiet sadness on his face. The judge asked if he wanted to respond. He stood, cleared his throat, and said, "Your Honor, I didn't neglect her. I was battling cancer for the last 3 years." Gasps. Even his wife looked stunned. She whispered, "You, what?" He explained he didn't tell her because she was going through depression at the time and he didn't want to burden her. He showed medical records, treatment dates, and even texts from nurses checking in on him. She broke down crying right there. The judge called for a recess. When they came back, the wife withdrew her harshest claims. They agreed to mediation, not litigation. They ended up parting ways amicably. No screaming, no vengeance. Just tears, apologies, and 2 people who had been quietly broken for years. Story 21. This divorce case was already bitter before anyone even entered the courtroom. The husband claimed his wife was after him for money, and she claimed he was emotionally unavailable and cold. He said she was lying. She said he was a manipulative gaslighter. You know the type of case. But then the judge calmly asked the wife, "How long have you been seeing Mr. Harmon?" She froze. "What?" The judge continued. "According to these photos, credit card charges, and travel records, it seems Mr. Harmon accompanied you on your weekend trips for the last 6 months. That correct?" The husband's lawyer had hired a PI and hadn't told anyone until court. The evidence wasn't just solid, it was surgical. Hotel bookings in her name, flights purchased on the same day as those booked by her alleged affair partner, and even selfies pulled from a shared cloud account. Suddenly, her accusations looked like projection. The judge's tone shifted entirely. He granted the husband the lion's share of the estate, denied alimony, and told her, "Don't weaponize the court to clean up your mess." Story 22. A woman came to court demanding full custody of her 3 kids, claiming her husband was dangerously irresponsible. She brought up incidents like letting the kids eat junk food, letting them stay up too late, and even forgetting to pack school lunches. Petty stuff, honestly. Then the husband took the stand and said very little, until the judge asked him, "Do you feel you've been a responsible father?" He responded, "I tried my best after she left." Confused, the judge asked, "Left?" That's when the whole story flipped. She had moved across the country a year prior, chasing a guy she met online. She only came back 2 weeks ago, when she learned the husband had started dating someone new. She'd left the kids with him for 11 months, barely called, and never sent money. When asked why she never mentioned that, she shrugged and said, "I didn't think it mattered." The judge stared at her for a long moment and said, "It matters more than you know." She walked in expecting to win. Instead, she left with supervised visitation and a courtroom full of people side-eyeing her all the way out. Story 23. The wife insisted she deserved the house. She claimed it was emotionally significant to her and that the husband had no attachment to it. Her attorney painted a picture of her lovingly decorating, tending the garden, raising their 2 kids in that home. But the husband, quiet, soft-spoken, simply stood up and said, "Your Honor, I built that house with my own hands." Turns out he was a contractor. He had spent 18 months building their dream home from scratch on a piece of land gifted by his father. He even submitted time-lapse video clips from his GoPro documenting the process, from foundation to finishing touches. The judge watched in silence for a minute of the footage before stopping it and saying, "Ma'am, I think you've confused sentimentality with ownership." She didn't get the house. He didn't even gloat, just nodded, thanked the judge, and walked out. Probably the most respectful mic drop moment I've ever seen. Story 24. In a particularly strange case, a man demanded that his soon-to-be ex-wife return a very specific item, his taxidermied ferret named General Whiskers. Yes, really. She refused, saying it was hers now and part of the shared marital decor. The judge, clearly confused but intrigued, asked, "What is the significance of this ferret?" The man answered, "My grandfather gave me that ferret when I was 10. It's all I have left of him." The room fell silent. The wife rolled her eyes and said, "It's just a dead rodent." That didn't sit well. The judge ruled immediately. The ferret must be returned to the husband, along with a few other sentimental heirlooms. He also added, "Ma'am, in future proceedings, I'd advise against minimizing other people's emotional attachments, especially to taxidermy." It was a weird win, but a win nonetheless. Story 25. This one was like watching karma tap dance across the courtroom. The husband was a tech executive, clean-cut, high salary, and smug as hell. The wife had been a stay-at-home mom for 14 years, raising their 3 kids while he built his empire. He claimed she contributed nothing and didn't deserve a dime more than the prenup state. But when her lawyer stepped up, she dropped the bomb. "Your Honor," he said, "we have evidence Mr. Lewis violated the infidelity clause in the prenup repeatedly. She had photos, texts, and even a hotel loyalty card that showed dozens of stays during times he was allegedly on business trips." The judge flipped through the stack of evidence and said, "Mr. Lewis, this voids the financial limits in your prenup." His face went pale. The smugness vanished. She walked out of there with the house, half his assets, and primary custody. He walked out texting someone furiously, probably trying to cancel his next hotel reservation. Story 26. The husband in this case claimed he was broke, couldn't pay child support, couldn't afford alimony, said he was barely scraping by. His wife wasn't even asking for much, just enough to keep the kids in their school and help with rent. He said it was financially impossible. Then came the twist. Her lawyer submitted drone footage. Yep, drone footage of the husband's new house, complete with a backyard pool, brand new truck, and even a built-in outdoor kitchen. The footage showed him grilling and laughing with friends just days before the hearing. The judge didn't even wait for a response. He said, "You're clearly living well, Mr. Drayton. I'm adjusting your support payments to reflect that lifestyle." Turns out the guy had registered the house in his cousin's name to hide it. Didn't matter. The drone footage and a few utility bills in his name sealed it. Trying to fake being broke when you're hosting BBQ parties in a poolside cabana. Not the smartest play. Story 27. This case started off normally. The couple was dividing assets, nothing too wild, until they got to a piece of art. It was a painting done by a local artist, and both claimed it had sentimental value. The husband said it was the first thing they bought together. The wife said it reminded her of her late mother. Then the judge asked, "When was this painting purchased?" They both agreed, 3 years ago. The judge flipped through the case file and said, "That's odd." According to a sworn affidavit submitted earlier, Mr. Jenkins claimed to have bought the painting in 2012 as a gift for his ex-girlfriend. Awkward silence. Turns out he never told his wife where the painting came from. She looked heartbroken and furious. The judge said, "Given the deception involved, and since it has no actual connection to this marriage, I'm ordering it sold and the profits split." Neither of them walked out with the painting. But the wife did walk out knowing a lot more than when she came in. Story 28. There was a younger couple, married just 2 years, already headed for divorce. The wife wanted to keep the apartment. She said she'd decorated it, maintained it, made it feel like home. The husband claimed he paid for everything, so it was rightfully his. The judge asked for proof of ownership, and he proudly presented the deed in his name. But then she pulled out a lease agreement. Turns out he never bought the place. He was renting it from her parents. Cue dramatic silence. The judge blinked and said, "So you're demanding exclusive rights to a property you don't even own?" The husband stammered, then accused the wife of setting him up. The judge replied, "Sir, signing a lease and forgetting you don't own the property isn't entrapment. It's ignorance." Needless to say, he didn't get the apartment. She stayed, rent-free, while he scrambled to find a new place. That lease was the quiet MVP of the whole case. Story 29. This one got emotional fast. The wife was fighting for primary custody, saying her husband was an absent father who never participated in their daughter's life. She said he didn't know her favorite food, didn't attend school events, and barely knew what grade she was in. He sat silently through most of it, until it was his turn. He pulled out a scrapbook. Not flashy, just a simple binder full of drawings, school photos, letters she'd written him, and a video montage of birthdays, dance recitals, and even late-night bedtime stories recorded on his phone. Then he looked at the judge and said, "I may not post everything on Instagram, but I've been there for her every single step." The courtroom was quiet. Even his wife started to tear up. The judge gave them joint custody and ordered co-parenting counseling, saying, "It's clear this child is loved." Let's start from that truth. It wasn't a win for either side, but it was the most peaceful ending possible. Story 30. In a bitter custody battle, the husband insisted his wife was mentally unstable and dangerous to their kids. He told the court she'd been in therapy for years and was barely functioning. She didn't say much, just sat quietly while he ranted. Then her attorney stood and said, "Your Honor, the court may want to see Exhibit F." It was her resume. She was a practicing psychiatrist, not a patient, a licensed, board-certified doctor. She had been in therapy because she's a therapist who believes in practicing what she preaches. The records the husband submitted were actually research notes from a mental health symposium she spoke at. The judge gave him a long stare and said, "So to confirm, your basis for claiming your wife is unstable is that she understands mental health?" His lawyer quietly asked for a recess. Custody awarded to the wife. The husband was ordered to attend parenting and court ethics classes. That backfired so fast it was almost impressive. Story 31. My friend's ex-wife was asking for full custody, spousal support, and the house. Even though they had no kids, she had cheated on, and the house was in his name before they married. She came into court dressed like she was heading to brunch with the girls. Giant sunglasses, a fur vest, coffee in hand, chewing gum. My buddy showed up with a binder of documents and a folder of bank statements showing all the money she siphoned from his accounts while living with her new boyfriend. After about 20 minutes of back and forth, the judge leans back and says, "Ma'am, are you aware that you're the defendant in this case, not the victim?" The courtroom went dead silent. Her lawyer looked like he wanted to melt into his chair. The judge went on to say she had no legal claim to the house, she would receive no spousal support, and that if she kept wasting the court's time, he'd consider sanctions. She stormed out crying. My buddy walked out with everything he came in with, except the weight on his shoulders. Story 32. In my cousin's divorce, the judge asked her husband a very simple question. "Did you cheat on your wife with her sister, yes or no?" The husband responded with, "Well, it's complicated." The judge didn't even flinch. It's not. It's yes or no. And your hesitation just answered for you. Boom! From that point, everything shifted. The court had previously been leaning toward 50-50 everything: custody, assets, time. After that moment, the judge reevaluated custody in my cousin's favor, awarded her the family home, and only allowed him supervised visitation with the kids for 6 months. His own lawyer looked shell-shocked, all because he couldn't say no. Story 33. During my divorce, my ex tried to claim my dog, Charlie, as marital property. He said I was unfit to care for him and that Charlie preferred him. I brought in videos, vet bills, even photos showing that I'd had Charlie before we even met. My ex's lawyer made this whole show about how pets are like children and deserve stability. But then the judge asked my ex, "What's the dog's name?" He froze, dead silent. The judge repeated, "You're requesting full custody of the dog. What's his name?" My ex stammered, "It's, Chuck?" Charlie barked from under the table where he was quietly sitting next to him. The judge smiled and said, "Case closed. The dog stays with the person who knows his name." Even the courtroom clerks were laughing. My ex left red-faced and empty-handed. Story 34. My mom's best friend had a nightmare divorce. Her husband was hiding income, claiming he couldn't afford child support, but she knew he was doing side gigs under the table. In court, his lawyer presented evidence that he was broke. But my mom's friend had done her homework. She handed the judge a stack of Instagram posts, photos of him on vacation, partying with expensive liquor, flashing wads of cash with captions like, "Side hustle pays off." The judge took one look and said, "Mr. Thompson, are you under the impression that Instagram is invisible to the court?" He froze. His lawyer closed the folder slowly, not saying a word. The judge then declared that his financial statements were fraudulent and ordered an immediate investigation. Child support doubled, and he was fined for perjury. His face was pale as a ghost. That one sentence unraveled every lie he'd built for months. Story 35. My aunt's ex-husband was trying to get alimony, claiming she was emotionally abusive and left him with nothing. He even brought fake letters he wrote to himself as proof of trauma. It was wild. The judge listened patiently. Then my aunt's lawyer pulled out a voicemail, one he accidentally left while talking crap about the judge, calling him a boomer idiot who'd eat anything with a sob story. The judge asked, "Mr. Miller, is this your voice?" He tried to say no. Then the judge hit play again, loud and clear, and once I start crying, that old man'll eat it up. The judge looked up and said, "Request for alimony denied. You're lucky I'm not holding you in contempt." He left the courtroom without even looking back. Story 36. My ex tried to pull the classic "she's crazy" routine, claimed I was unstable, unfit to parent, said I had violent tendencies and needed psychiatric help. He looked so smug sitting there like the victim. I stayed quiet, letting my lawyer handle it. Then the judge said, "Let me ask this. If she's so unstable, why did you leave your 3-year-old son with her for 27 consecutive days before filing this motion?" He stammered, I was working." The judge didn't blink. "You work at a vape shop part-time. That doesn't explain why a man so concerned for his child's safety voluntarily leaves him with the woman he's now calling dangerous." The entire courtroom went still. His lawyer stopped writing. That single sentence shattered his narrative. I got full custody, and he got supervised visits every other weekend. The wildest part? He still acts shocked about it. Story 37. In a divorce case I observed during jury duty, family court was overloaded that week. The wife was trying to get alimony. Nothing unusual, until she dramatically claimed she couldn't work because she was too heartbroken and hadn't been able to leave her house in months. Then the husband's lawyer pulled out a photo from her OnlyFans, complete with a timestamp from the previous week, showing her doing yoga in a very fancy studio with the caption, "Grind never stops." The judge blinked. "So, just to confirm, you're too emotionally destroyed to find employment, but you're running a successful subscription-based business, advertising wellness and empowerment?" She muttered something like, "That's private." The judge actually laughed. "You made it public. That's how exhibits work." He ruled no alimony, cited her income from the platform, and reminded her that perjury is a felony. Story 38. My friend was going through a brutal divorce. His wife had emptied their joint savings account and disappeared with their daughter for 3 months. She came back demanding full custody, claiming he had anger issues. The judge listened to her entire emotional testimony. She painted herself as this perfect mom just trying to protect her kid. Then the judge asked a simple question. "Why didn't you file a police report when you left?" She looked confused. "I didn't think I had to." The judge responded, "So you thought taking your daughter across state lines, withdrawing $18,000 and cutting off all contact without legal notice or emergency petition was just fine?" Dead silence. The judge ordered a forensic financial audit and temporarily gave my friend primary custody pending investigation. Her lawyer looked like he wanted to disappear. Story 39. My uncle was in court fighting over a vintage car he restored, something he owned long before he met his wife. She insisted it was part of the marriage because they went on road trips in it. The judge asked her plainly, "Did you contribute to the restoration or maintenance of this vehicle in any way?" She said, "Well, I took pictures of it, and I posted those pictures on Instagram, so technically I increased its value." The judge stared at her for a full 10 seconds. Then he said, "This is not a courtroom for delusion. The car belongs to your husband." Boom. Just like that. No further arguments. He even ordered her to pay his legal fees on that part of the dispute. That one line, "a courtroom for delusion," still gets quoted in our family. Story 40. This one happened to a coworker. She had been in a marriage with a guy who cheated repeatedly, racked up debt, and tried to hide money in crypto. During the divorce hearing, he kept insisting everything should be evenly split because he sacrificed so much to provide. Her lawyer produced a hidden camera video from their shared home, legal in their state, recorded after she suspected him of hiding things. It showed him telling his new girlfriend, "Don't worry, babe, she's too dumb to find the ledger wallet." Judge paused the video, looked right at him. "Do you believe your wife is too dumb to find this wallet now?" He turned purple. The judge awarded her 70% of the assets, including all traced crypto accounts. said his deceit was extraordinary and intentional. That moment changed everything. One sentence and his whole fake persona crumbled. Story 41. My dad's second wife tried to claim my college fund as shared marital assets. My grandmother had set up the account when I was born. It was in my name only. But somehow this woman convinced herself she deserved a cut of it because she emotionally supported my dad during that time. In court, she brought a whole slideshow of photos. Her at my high school graduation, her at family holidays, claiming she helped raise me. The judge leaned forward and said, "Ma'am, appearing in photos is not the same as contributing financially to an account created 12 years before you met this family." She looked stunned. Her lawyer went quiet. The judge continued, "Touch that fund and I'll see you held in contempt." She backed off real fast. I got every cent of that college fund and a crash course in how delusion can walk into a courtroom in high heels. Story 42. I was there as a character witness for a friend. Her ex-husband was trying to say she was unstable and an alcoholic, and he even submitted grainy screenshots of her holding a wine glass during a girls' night. The judge asked him a very calm question. "Do you drink alcohol, Mr. Becker?" He said no. The judge raised an eyebrow and held up a printout of the ex's Facebook account, tagged in dozens of pictures, drinks in hand, beer pong, Vegas strip clubs, bottle service. "Is that not you in these images?" His lawyer immediately asked for a recess. The judge said no. "You lied under oath. This isn't going to end well for you." That moment flipped everything. She got full custody. He got hit with perjury charges. Wildest turnaround I've ever seen in real time. Story 43. During my sister's divorce, her ex tried to say that the prenup they signed wasn't valid because he was emotionally manipulated into signing it. The judge, clearly irritated by the fifth time he used that phrase, stopped him and said, "So let me get this straight. You're claiming that being in love and agreeing to terms you fully understood is emotional manipulation?" He said yes. The judge leaned back and said, "Well then every wedding vow is a hostage situation." The courtroom chuckled, and the ex's lawyer put his head in his hands. The prenup stood. She kept her business. He walked away with nothing but a bruised ego and the bill for both their court fees. Story 40. I worked in the courthouse and saw some crazy things, but this one stands out. The husband was trying to get out of alimony by saying he was permanently disabled. His lawyer painted this whole picture of how he couldn't work, couldn't stand for long, suffered from chronic pain. Then the wife's lawyer pulled up a YouTube video. It was him, a week earlier, doing backflips at a local trampoline park. The video had his full name in the username and was titled, "Still Got It at 45. The judge said nothing for about 10 seconds. Then, "Sir, are you disabled only in court or also on social media?" The guy froze. His own lawyer looked like he was gonna puke. Alimony was back on the table, retroactive to the date of filing. That judge had jokes, but also a razor-sharp sense of justice. Story 45. My aunt's divorce was ugly. Her ex had been controlling, verbally abusive, and tried to weaponize the kids. In court, he claimed she was alienating them from him, even though they were old enough to say they didn't want to see him. The judge let the kids speak privately in chambers. When they came back, the judge looked pissed. He turned to the father and said, "They're scared of you, not because their mother told them to be, but because of how you talk to them. This isn't alienation. It's self-preservation." I swear I felt a weight lift off everyone's shoulders. The ex turned red, then pale. The judge awarded full custody to my aunt and gave the dad court-ordered therapy before he could even request visitation again. Sometimes, the truth hits like a hammer, and that judge swung it hard. Story 46. My brother's ex-wife tried to claim his military pension, even though they were only married for 14 months, and she cheated with someone while he was deployed overseas. In court, she kept calling herself a military spouse, like it was a full-time job. She cried about sacrifice, loyalty, and losing years of her life. The judge listened patiently, then calmly said, "Ms. Curtis, you were married to this man for 14 months. You dated him longer than that, which means you walked away with more photos than sacrifice." Her jaw dropped. The judge continued, "You cheated during active duty. You are not entitled to a cent of his pension." Her tears stopped instantly. She just stared at the bench, blinking. The court clerk smirked. Case wrapped up in 10 more minutes. Story 47. I represented myself in my divorce because I couldn't afford a lawyer. My ex showed up with a whole legal team ready to bury me. She tried to say I never contributed emotionally or financially and deserved nothing. But I had receipts. Literally. I brought binders of bank transfers, screenshots of me paying her student loans, Venmo notes from groceries to her spa day. I even had emails showing I supported her through job interviews and therapy sessions. After I laid it all out, the judge turned to her and said, "Is there a particular reason you believed emotional support didn't count when you were accepting it?" She said nothing. Then the judge dropped this. "Ma'am, you didn't want a husband. You wanted a wallet with a heart." Everyone in court let out this stunned silence. I walked out with a fair 50-50 split and a fresh backbone. Story 48. My coworker's husband filed for divorce and demanded she pay him alimony. He claimed she made more money and had abandoned the marriage by focusing on her career. But in court, it came out that while she was working double shifts at the hospital during COVID, he was using her income to fund a Twitch streaming setup and cheating with one of his subscribers. When that got revealed, the judge looked disgusted. He said, "Mr. Jameson, did you sincerely believe that being a part-time streamer who lives off your wife's nursing income qualified you for spousal support?" The guy tried to say streaming was his business. The judge replied, "If this is a business, then I expect tax returns, profits, and clients. Not chat logs and emojis." Boom. Alimony denied. She got the house, car, and a standing ovation from the courtroom. Story 49. My cousin's ex tried to argue that he deserved part of the inheritance she got from their grandmother. The kicker? The grandmother explicitly hated him. Like, went out of her way to say it hated. Her will literally said, "None of this is to go to Greg. He knows why." Still, Greg's lawyer argued that since the inheritance came during the marriage, it was commingled and subject to division. The judge paused, reread the line from the will, and looked over his glasses. "Mr. Greg, you know why, and now I do too." Everyone laughed. The judge ruled the inheritance untouched, and even threatened sanctions if they tried to drag it back into court again. Story 50. This happened during my friend's custody battle. His ex claimed he was absent and uninvolved, which shocked everyone. He coached their son's soccer team, went to every school event, and worked remotely just to spend more time with his kid. Her lawyer presented her as the primary caregiver and tried to paint him as a neglectful workaholic. Then the judge asked the son, who was 12, what he wanted. The kid said, "I love my mom, but dad's the one who picks me up, helps me with homework, and actually listens when I talk." The judge turned to the mom and said, "It seems your case is built on narrative, not reality." Final ruling? Joint custody, but the father got the final say on schooling and medical decisions. The courtroom buzzed for minutes after that. Story 51. My best friend's ex tried to say she was neglectful because she worked 2 jobs. Meanwhile, this guy hadn't worked in 3 years and spent his time playing Xbox and investing in crypto, which basically meant losing money on Reddit tips. In court, his lawyer made a long speech about how children need a parent who's physically present. The judge asked if he had any income, and he said, "Crypto is volatile, but I'm building a future." The judge said, "Mr. Lawson, if your future is based on meme stocks and unpaid bills, then your child deserves better." She got full custody. He got visitation twice a month and a very polite order to get a real job. Story 52. My uncle's ex-wife tried to argue that their house, which he inherited from his parents, should be split because she created the energy that made it a home. The judge actually tilted his head like he misheard. "You believe you're entitled to half the house value because of vibes?" Her lawyer jumped in to reframe it, but the damage was done. The judge asked for proof she contributed financially. None. Proof she paid for repairs. None. Everything, from property tax to paint, had been covered by my uncle. He ruled the house was inherited, untouched by marital finances and entirely his. Then he added, "Good energy does not transfer title. That's not how real estate law or reality works." That line ended the debate. Story 53. In my own divorce, my ex tried to paint me as unstable by citing my therapy sessions. I go once a month for anxiety, nothing extreme. He tried to say it made me unfit to raise our daughter. The judge listened quietly, then asked him, "Do you attend any mental health services, sir?" He smugly said no. The judge nodded. "So you're mocking the mother of your child for managing her health proactively while doing nothing yourself and calling that stability?" The air got sucked out of the room. The judge then looked at my attorney and said, "Counselor, we can move on. I've heard enough to rule in your client's favor." I got primary custody, and he got a court-ordered parenting class. Story 54. My friend's ex-husband insisted that his affair didn't count because it was online. He had been having an explicit emotional relationship with someone on Discord for over a year. In court, he told the judge, "We never met, so I never cheated." The judge replied, "So if I rob a bank from a laptop, is it not a crime because I wasn't there in person?" He went pale. His lawyer tried to pivot, but the judge wasn't done. Digital infidelity is still betrayal, and based on your messages, it was emotionally and sexually explicit. Your argument holds no water, and neither does your credibility. That was the moment the tide turned. She got the house, the car, and the peace she deserved. Story 55. I was in the room when my brother's divorce wrapped. His ex tried to claim their daughter's college savings account should be split. The account was built entirely from our late father's life insurance payout, and she hadn't contributed a penny. Her argument? I stayed married to him long enough to help raise the child, so I deserve half. The judge raised an eyebrow and said, "Ma'am, staying married isn't a financial contribution. That's proximity, not participation." Then he looked directly at her and added, "You are attempting to take from your own child's future. I sincerely hope you reflect on that." She didn't say a word after that. The judge ordered the account locked until the daughter turned 18 and made sure her mother couldn't touch it.